Welcome back, everybody. We are going to cover Book 3 of Plato's The Republic, The Noble Lie, Jim. The Noble Lie.
The Noble Lie. The Noble
And
Lie. There's not that there's been any of that going on lately.
yeah, so much to talk about with.
I would never
Book
weigh
3.
in on that, however.
Yeah, well, we're going to as we so. Yeah, so I mentioned behind the scenes briefly that Book 3 is both so right and so wrong in so many ways, right? And it's just so fascinating. It's so challenging. At times, it's so confusing. You're nodding your head, then you're like asking like if he's just being utterly inconsistent with himself. There's just so much going on here. So I'm really excited to go through this in our series. Couple of quick announcements before we dive in. I am now streaming this on both channels. So this is now on the Philosophy for the People channel. So if you haven't gone over to our new YouTube channel where we're just going to be keeping all of the philosophy content, please head over and to Philosophy for the People. It looks like this. You can see the little cool yellow logo thing there. And please subscribe. Please leave your comments, and you'll find all the philosophy stuff over there from now on. And that's all I have to say right now. So Jim, Book 3. Yeah, where do we
start?
Yeah, where do we start? Probably best to begin at the beginning, right?
Begin at the beginning, as it were. And actually, I would say one should always begin before the beginning, right? Sort of very Platonic thing there. And look back to Book 2. Okay, so what happened in Book 2? Okay, Glaucon said, yeah, unlike Thrasymachus, I'm actually not stupid, and you're going to have to work to convince me, even though I do in principle agree with you that justice is good in itself and good for its consequences. And Socrates then says, yeah, okay, well, let's do this, but it's very hard to see justice in the individual, so I'm going to change it to the political level, right? Which parallels the move made in Book 1. Please see the earlier episode. I think that's very important.
Yes.
And so now I'm going to ask, what is justice in the ideal in the city? And what are the consequences for the city? Would it be good or bad for the city to have this justice, right? And then that'll tell us what justice is per se, and we can apply it to the individual. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what's going on. And then in Book 2, you get this, okay, so why do cities happen? It's because humans are naturally sort of plural, not in the sense that we don't belong together, but we're all different, right? And so then we can best flourish if we draw on the strengths of others to complement our weaknesses, right? And our strengths can complement the weaknesses of others. So there's going to be a coming together of a city, okay? Right. But we'll want to do better, right? In that specific sense of doing better that we talked about, in that not just, we want better to be better off, but we want to be better than the other guy, the other city, right? The other person. So there's going to be this constant need to overstep step out of your lane into someone else's lane to do better, whether that's within the city or the city going beyond itself. Importantly, Socrates, right? You have to be careful with that. Socrates in the dialogue seems to think that doing better is inevitable. This has to be guarded against. There's no way. Okay. Which once again, this is like, anyone who's met a human being knows this. And you and I might say it's an intimation of original sin, right? Mm-hmm. We will always overstep. We'll always try to do better. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to need some guardians to defend the city from without, to go and fight the wars that are wanting to do better will always bring about, and to protect against the tendency to want to do better within the city, to keep a unity there. Okay. Mm-hmm. And once again, justice, what we already saw back in Book 1 is this principle of unifying parts into a whole. That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so now then Book 2, you began a discussion of the education of the guardians. And the first step that he took was, we're going to have to do some theological sanitizing of the extant Greek literature that's available right now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're going to have to do a little cancel culture, Jim.
Yeah. Redaction. I like it. Redaction. Right. It's interesting. He doesn't say these myths should not be read. He just says they should not be read.
We have to tweak them. Right.
Tweak them. And it doesn't say there isn't some people really in the know that are going to read this.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so in the overriding drift of the censorship in Book 2 is anything that makes the gods look like a plurality has to be gotten over. they're lying, right? Which is lying is plural, truth is unified, right?
Right.
They're changing forms, right? From, like showing up as a chicken or showing up as a bull. Okay.
Yeah.
That's plurality. Everything's got to be a unity. And he even says towards the end, the gods must be made simple and whole. Okay. And this is my thesis about the book, is the whole thing is this movement against pre-Socratic polytheism and toward a kind of monotheism.
Yeah,
right?
at least a practical monotheism.
Yeah,
right?
a practical monotheism.
Yeah. So he's emphasizing a number of things here. One is we can't have the guardians be cowards, right? So anything that might inspire a man to rather be a slave than face up to death, we've got to sanitize that.
It's got to go.
Boom, it's got to go.
And that starts in book 3 now, where like any poems of lament for the death of a hero, right? Right. Any mourning songs, anything that paints Hades as anything but an awesome place to go if you're awesome, right? That's all got to go.
Right. Yeah, and then same thing with the gods, the engaging in various vices, right? We have to sanitize that because we don't want people imitating this for obvious reasons as well. And what's really interesting is like at some points in the dialogue, Socrates kind of like pauses and says, all right, well, we can't really like beg the question here in this thought experiment. Yet he does seem to kind of frequently do that. You know what I mean? Like kind of assume the thing he's trying to prove along the way, right? Yeah. And he calls himself on it at one point, but only at one point.
Well, okay, and actually I don't think that's accidental to the overall dialogue, but let me save that for now, right? But I think that was present in book 1. They clearly all have an implicit knowledge of justice. It's present in book 2. It's present in book 3, right? And if you think of it, just all like this bit, all the things that are going to go on, like, okay, so what's wrong with telling people Hades might be a bad place, even if you're a good soldier in this life, is it's going to take you off the path, right? And what's that do? That's going to create disunity within the unity that we want. Okay. And so once again, it's all about unification. It's all about unification, like bringing things under a single, practical, right, direction, right? And I think another important thing that goes on here in book 3, book 3 is, okay, it's not, so he starts at that last one. It's like what we're going to do basically to Hesiod, right? Like the myths that they have from Hesiod about the gods, right? And then now the beginning of book 3, then, okay, now the kind of the popular religion that involves, mourning rites and lamentations and all this stuff, that's got to go for the guardians at least, right? Because we can't have them thinking it's not good to die for the city. But then he goes after the tragedy and comedy writers, right? Okay, so literally, like he's got Sophocles in mind here, he's got Aeschylus in mind here. Okay, he's got all the tragic writers, and it's very important what he says is the problem there. Okay, it's not. He actually says it's not the content of the plays; it's the style. Okay.
Yeah, and he draws distinctions between matter and manner at a certain point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the manner of the plays. Okay, so I think a lot of people think is like they miss it. Is like what Socrates is worried about is, the young people, seeing violence and sex and stuff in these plays. That's not it, right? It's the manner. Okay, and it's the imitative manner, right? And he allows narration to go on. He doesn't have any problem with narrative literature. Okay. It's imitative literature. And so if you have a narrator, right, once upon a time, and the narrator checks in, you're taking this kind of God's eye perspective on the drama.
Yeah.
Okay. Your perspective is not the perspective of the characters at the first order. You have a second order. You're outside looking in on this thing. Okay. So it's almost like you're a Kantian transcendental apperception, right? Standing outside of the phenomenal world, looking in on it. So you are a pure unity, observing a plurality. Okay. If you have the perspective of the narrator, because the narrator persists as who he is or who she is throughout the entire narrative, right? Otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Okay. But in the tragedies, there is no narration. It's just, the chorus speaks, and then then Antigone speaks, and then Creon speaks, and then, Teresa speaks, and all this. And so you're constantly being drawn into different perspectives, right? You don't see these characters as external. You have to like enter into and be them. Okay. So what's happening here is you are learning to be many things, and you're not learning to be one thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's the problem. Right.
Right.
And so once again, this kind of hits my thesis for the book. It's why, because the tragedies are a very polytheistic place. And I think they're proposing the problem of polytheism to us. And what's Plato doing here? He's saying, yeah, and for that reason, they have to go. And it's actually right down to the structure of the literature is the problem.
Yeah.
And it's not the content, it's the structure of literature that keeps forcing us to adopt multiple perspectives. And he says in book 3 that we need to learn one craft and one craft only and master that, right? And that's how we will like stay in our lanes and contribute to the good of the whole. But the tragedies and the comedies, and it's really the tragedies we're about, they ask us to learn more than one craft. They ask us to be more than one thing.
So Jim, what I really like about this is you're keeping this sort of meta perspective in mind, which is this deep thesis of unity, right? So it's not like Plato is just the mom from that movie. Did you ever see the movie Detroit Rock City?
Yeah.
Really funny, right?
Yeah.
And you know what mom I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Don't listen to Kiss. That's Knights in Satan's service, right?
Yeah.
And,
for me who grew up in the 80s, it's what was it? Kipper Gore, Al Gore's wife,
right?
went to war with like Twisted Sister, right?
right. So it's not like Plato's just being that, but he kind of is too, in the same sense of like, look, if you get mixed up in certain influences and you start and it's an imitation, right? This develops habits and dispositions over time, and then this is going to lead to not just a mess for the individual, but that unity that we're looking for. That
I actually think, leaving aside the censorship of it, what he's saying though is like the question of what we consume in terms of art is deeper than the content, right?
Oh yeah, it's
what habits of mind does that art actually habituate in us, right? Actually bring about in us. So it's sort of like, this is my view. I hope we don't get in trouble. This is like on like, really vapid. It seems to always be breathy, like Christian pop music. Okay. Right. It's okay. It's probably fine on content, but what habit of mind is that teaching me? Right.
Plato would probably call it an effeminate habit of mind.
Yeah, exactly. But it's teaching me vapidity, right? It's teaching me to be vapid.
Right.
And vapid good content is still vapid, right? And it leaves me unsophisticated, right? And it habituates unsophistication, right? You see my point, and I think that's sort of Plato's point about tragedy here. Is it's not the content; it's what it does to you as an intellectual. Yeah. In adopting, in whatever we think he's right about it, there's a value to adopting other perspectives or not, right? Right. The point is like there's more to your worry about art is whether or not it has like say pornographic content or not. There's also what habit of mind does the consumption of that art bring about in you, right? Right.
So we can when we add our own. We're just trying to summarize now. We can have our commentary of whether we think Plato was right about this later. So just for the listener's sake.
Yeah.
At the beginning of these episodes, really just trying to summarize what we think Plato is
what he's up to.
Teaching, right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about our interpretation later, but let me just say this. You're right, because he goes all the way down into the structure of music. And he's like, actually, I want you listening to like two modes, right? I think if I remember it's the Dorian mode and the Phrygian mode. And the interesting thing is the Dorian mode it's a minor mode, but it's like the brightest of the minor modes. So for people who know your music theory, you'll know that sort of thing, right? Yeah. And if you don't know your music theory, then I'm like sitting here thinking like, all right, what is like a popular song that features a Dorian mode? And I can't really think of too many, but like somebody like Joe Satriani, right? If you know Joe Satriani, like he plays around with a lot of Dorian and Phrygian modes. So I guess like Plato wants us to listen to a lot of Joe Satriani all the time, something like that, right? It's surfing with the alien going on, right?
That's awesome,
right? But it really gets you thinking, right? But he really thinks like the actual structure. And it's funny because music theory is a really good example of form and matter. So what modes are really just like it's the same matter, right, in terms of notes, but a different form, a different sort of configuration of that matter, which has a which is very qualitatively different, right? Right. So you get a really interesting kind of form matter analysis when it comes to music and music theory.
And look, this should not surprise us with Plato. Like what matters is the form, right? Okay, what form is this instantiating?
Right. Yeah. So he's all about the Dorian form and the Phrygian form. It seems like, hey, I like those forms too. So cool. All right. Anyways, continue.
Okay, and so so in book 3, we get, so once again, we get what kind of, I guess, popular religious practice we're going to allow, right? In terms of funeral rites and stuff like that.
Mhm.
We get what sort of drama we're going to allow, right? And we get what sort of music we're going to allow, right? And then we get into the physical and actual, like, kind of the nitty gritty of the physical and the musical training, right? More musical means something broader, like liberal arts, right?
Right.
I believe it's in book 3, or was it book 2, where Plato says, look, the guardian is going to have to be trained both physically and musically, right?
Right.
And
he sort of wants to take a moderate. He's not an extremist when it comes to physical training either. Right.
And by the way, we've done a deep dive episode on this one, right? We should move that. Yeah.
Plato's about to do some serious fat shaming.
Yeah, he's going to do some fat. Well, and actually, it's going to get even more in book 4, right? Okay. But okay. First of all, I think a very, very important point that comes up here that is that is missed is the question at one point is raised. Do we train the mind or the soul through the body, or do we train the body through the mind or the soul? Okay. And I always raise to my students, what's curious about that question to us, right? And it's the fact that there is no presumed, separation between the mind and the body there. Okay. In the way that we do, like it is very clear that all parties to the discussion think that your body is an expression of your mind and your mind is an expression of your body. I mean, I'm not trying to do the metaphysics of the mind-body problem. What I'm saying is like the condition of your body is evidence of the condition of your mind. Right. And the condition of your mind is in a way evidence of the condition of your body. Right. Because keep in mind, like for soul in this context, it's this unity, the harmony of the parts such that it constitutes a body. So if your body is disharmonious, that means your soul is disharmonious. If your soul is disharmonious, that means your body will be disharmonious. Okay. Mm-hmm. Plato does, in that passage I'm referring to, come out and say, well, I think the important thing is to train the soul, train the mind. And then those are, I don't like using this interchangeably, but in order to train the body. But note the presumption that you can't have a disordered body, right? Mm-hmm. And have a well-ordered soul. And you can't have a disordered soul and have a well-ordered body. That's important. That is very counterintuitive to us. Though I think it's something that you and I both would say Plato is not far wrong here.
Well, it's not spot on. And like there's many insights here that like are so relevant to modern fitness culture, because he's like, look, if you're just like too obsessed with the body training, you're essentially going to be a brute. And
and he says, if all you are is a dumb gym rat, then you're a dumb gym rat. Right?
That ain't good. Yeah,
that ain't good. You're just gonna be a brute and a bore, and you've met this dude, right? Yeah. But if all you are is someone who just reads books all day, right, and you've never gone out and mixed it up in the real world, mm-hmm. you're probably pretty soft, and you're equally a bore of a sort, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so I think it's very counterintuitive, because like to somehow say, hey, no, my body. And he's not talking about getting sick and getting cancer. He's talking he's talking about diseases of intemperance is what come mm-hmm. up here, right? That I've wrecked my body with my intemperance, but hey, inside I'm like an inner hero. But let's say there's no such thing, right? Right? Okay. And likewise, he would say, you're going to say that you've wrecked your mind, but you have a great body. No way, right? These two things come hand in hand, right? Spot on. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, good, right. Which I think is very relevant, right? Yeah, exactly. And so then, and we've talked about this elsewhere too, is that the kind of training that guardian gets will be minimalist, right? It'll be absolutely minimalist. It will be rigorous and difficult, but it'll be no more than necessary, right? Yes. And it'll be aimed at functionality to battlefield, right? Mm-hmm. Completely. But it won't waste anything at all, right? Mm-hmm. And likewise, the musical training, right, it'll be minimalist, right? And it'll be oriented to the proper end, and it won't waste anything at all, right? So it's gonna be good Pat Flynn, right? Minimalist, generalist, specialized, not specialized. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Okay, so there's so much more. Do we want to go back to the sort of functional? I guess. What else haven't we covered yet? We got to get into the myth of the metals and the noble lie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Right? We should mention this. This is going to be important. So, what does Socrates say should be done with these people who do fall into diseases of intemperance, right?
Yeah.
And his view is, Pat, is they should not be treated, right?
Right.
They should not be treated.
So if you let yourself go, Plato is saying society should let you go.
Yeah.
Right. That's because weak fathers should then not go and beget weak sons, is Plato's one of his lines in there. Right.
There is the eugenics. There's the eugenics thing too. Okay. Okay. There's that. Like, you're just going to make more bad kids. Right. Okay. But also, what I find maybe more relevant to our possible outlook today is he says it's also a violation of the craft of medicine. Okay. Because he said earlier,
I like when he starts talking about all like these like invented diseases.
Yeah, exactly.
Very relevant. Like that's like this is where like we're about this war. Like there's so much right and so much wrong in all of this, right? Like the whole invented disease thing is just pretty hilarious. Right?
Yeah. Once again, he was not far wrong. Right. I love it when Aristotle says that about Plato. He was not far wrong when he said, right? You can, like, Aristotle's trying to be careful because he knows these guys got in trouble, right? Okay. Right. Anyway, so he earlier in the dialogue, he said a craft serves the object of the craft, not the practitioner of the craft, right? So when you do a craft, you should be doing what is best for the object of the craft, not for yourself in this, okay? And he says the physician, and later on he's going to say it's the ruler on the same issue. It would be easier for the physician to say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to like have this tough conversation with you, and I'll just go ahead and treat the symptoms here and move you along.
Yeah, I'll write the prescription. Bye-bye. Right.
Yeah, bye-bye. Right. But what Plato's saying though is, well, that's not good for the object of the craft, right? That's not good for the patient. What's good for the patient would be that they would reform their lives, right? And so all you're doing is returning them to their vice, right? And then thereby you're going to like foster vice in the city, and we're going to see the selective breeding process he's going to come out for. Right. But even leaving that aside, please leave that aside. Is that good medicine? Is it good medicine to say, I'll just let you keep doing this to yourself and we'll make you a greater and greater dependency? No, right. Good medicine would say, we're going to demand of you this internal transformation, right? And also, anytime in the Republic, remember, it's not really about the macro, it's about the micro, right? And what do we want in ourselves? Do we want to keep like treating the symptoms of our bad desires, or do we want to come to correct the bad desires?
Yes,
and clearly, because what is the bad desire and its symptoms doing? It's sowing disunity in ourselves, right? It's making us look away from what we know is good and stuff like that. If we want to be unified and effective human beings, we have to find a way to address and heal those bad desires, not just placate them. Right. Not okay. And so you can see like what he's doing there. When you look at the micro level, it makes a lot more sense than just like let him die, right? Yeah. Though I think he's pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. I think it's a both and, right? Yeah. So in one sense, like that's a really good argument, I think, right? That like, hey, like what do we really want from medicine? Well, we want actual correction, not just masking over symptoms, right? So it's like, oh, okay, the kind of cheap, easy thing for a doctor, who's okay with being a hack is just to write the prescription to cover symptoms, but never really kind of get to the root of the problem, which is a much more difficult thing to do, right? It requires hard conversations, requires tough love. Now, at the same time, I think it's true, right? Especially if we realize the context of the culture, right? This is not the Judeo-Christian value system that we're used to, right? It's just not. Right. I mean, like, Sparta, for example, notorious for infanticide and stuff like this. So,
and infanticide is going to come up in a big way in the next book. Yeah. Right.
So I think it's a both and this is where we just kind of have to just be like, patient and careful in our kind of like sifting through where, he's like spot on here. And like, maybe we don't want to accept this. I don't know. It seems our country already is pretty much there with infanticide anyway, so we're not that far off, right?
Kind of doing it.
We'll come back to that. So
anyway. Bookmark that one, students. Yeah. But okay, but I'm kind of showing some cards of stuff that I'm going to do in more detail when we get to books. Was it 4 and 5? But I think it's important to see, okay, what we're building to here in the Republic at the macro level is basically a hardcore authoritarian dictatorship here. Okay. And that does not appear to be justice to us. Okay. However, would you be wrong to run yourself internally as a hardcore authoritarian dictatorship, right? Do you want to wake up in the morning and take a survey among your desires?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
hello, appetites. How are you doing
Yeah.
today?
How are you today, appetites? I'm gonna pass out a short survey to see which one of you is most overwhelming right now, and that's how I'll spend the day. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Is it the sexual impulse?
Yeah. I mean, I tried that for a few years in my early 20s. It's not really good. It's not really good, right? Okay. It doesn't work out, right? And so I think, I mean, this is the thing is, okay, we're right to see the dictatorship in the macro, in the republic as a city, is abhorrent. But the question I'm asking now is, but shouldn't we run ourselves as an internal dictatorship?
Yeah.
Wherein like the guardians are dictating, right, what the good is, so that we can then pick the desires based on the ones that are actually taking us to the good.
Yes,
right?
spot on.
It seems to me that, what you're trying to foster in your children is an internal dictatorship, right? Like learning how to choose among what's really good and tell your desires to go hang if they don't come in line with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Excellent.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a very important point. All right. And also that segues into something else from book 3 that we should look at is, so look how this is working. You start out, you got the city, and it's just a simple relationship among sort of harmonious merchants or desires, right? But then we realize that they're going to overstep. You leave the merchants to themselves, and they're going to overstep. So we need a guardian to make sure they don't overstep, and still gets us all the goods we want by like attacking other city states, right? Okay, so then you have, in order to maintain the unity, you actually had to have a plurality come out of that. You had to differentiate the guardian from the merchant, right? But now, as we go through this process in book 3, we start realizing, you know what? Not all the guardian types are going to be quite as smart as we wish they were, right? Okay, right. And they're not going to be that smart throughout their entire lives, too. Okay. And this like fits the kind of the Greek, like the going common Greek model is like in your 20s, your teens and 20s, you would have done military service, right? And then in your 30s, you would have moved into like a political career. Okay. Maybe you would train for it in your 30s, and then you would like actually do it in your 40s, maybe. Okay. And so it looks like we're going to have to distinguish between these auxiliaries, the helpers, and the real guardians. And the real guardians are the ones that are smarter, that they're better trained in philosophy. We'll see here. And the auxiliaries are either the ones that are too young to really do that, right? They're too like young and violent and horny at this point to really do that. And they're going to like be enforcing what the guardians dictate on the desires. Do you see that? So that they're that spirited element.
The spirit, right. Yeah. Reason, spirit.
Yeah, and so you can see where this is going. You have this distinction in the city between the really smart people who are going to like decide what we should pursue. You're going to have the spirited people who have the guts to see to it that it happens,
to enact it, right?
To enact it, and then you have the merchant class who are going to be productive of the goods, because appetite produces good. We need to want it, right? Right. Okay. And then in the soul, you can see it'll be reason, spirit, and appetite. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so you can see now we finally now in book 3 actually have that tripartite division, at least in play there. Right.
Right. Excellent.
Right. And it's an interesting thing. You get diversity, but it's diversity for sake of unity.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Now, what do we want to cover now?
For me, that's the overview of book 3.
Okay, so that's the overview. All right, well, let's talk. All right, let's dive in then and just make some more some commentary and remarks. And gentle listeners, if you want to submit questions, we'll take some of those. I see some good comments. We'll come to those in just a couple minutes. All right, so the man, there's so much here, right? Let's talk about the noble lie, right? Because
we should do the myth of the metals.
All right, give us the overview of it, and then we'll discuss.
Okay, so because remember, doing better is a problem. No one is immune from doing better, and this is why education is so important, because we're going to be educated out of wanting to do better, right? And so now you've got your guardians, right? And we're going to divide them between the auxiliaries and the guardians per se. Okay, and so you think of it, you're asking the auxiliaries to take a subservient role to the guardians, right? And who are the auxiliaries? They're like the really tough, spirited people who maybe weren't quite sharp enough, or they're not sharp enough yet to be guardians, right? These are not people you want like pissed off, right? Do you see what I mean? Like you don't, right? So you got to find a way to like sell this division to them. Okay. And Plato says, so we're going to need a lie to tell them about this, right? Okay. A lie. And there's the question, well, is it okay to lie? And so this is why we have to be careful too. And like how, like it's lie is said many ways. And what it comes out in the discussion is what they mean. The kind of lie that you can tell as a leader is one that I think it's better to say it's a myth, right? It's not complete. It's not utterly devoid of truth. It's not a deception. It's a way of getting someone to see a more complicated phenomenon. Right.
Right. And this is really interesting because it's like, it's never, to my mind, maybe you have a different interpretation on this. Like, it doesn't seem like the consideration of whether it's actually true or false is much brought up. Right. It's almost like a pure utility consideration. Right. So if it's knowingly false, it seems like we have an issue of inconsistency, right? Because Socrates just seems to care about the truth above all things, right?
Because like, what is knowing falsehood do? It's creating a disunity between the real,
right? So like that would be a glaring inconsistency, right? To my mind, and that's fine. You know, maybe he's just guilty of that, right? But it is functioning as a religion, right? Because it's giving a story of origins, a story of meaning, a story of purpose. So it's functioning as a religion. Now, is it a like, do they know that this is a false religion? Do they say, well, you know, if so, but here's the other interesting thing about it. It's
the way liberal Protestants think about the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Where like, okay, I'm not trying to be flip with that, right? But I mean, you know, like they'll look at, you know, the miracle stories in the gospel and they'll say, I don't care if it went down that way or not.
It's a story of learning to share.
Yeah. Well, or it finds a way of making available to us this really important practical truth that it would be difficult to otherwise explain. Right. You know what I mean? It's condescending, but it's not a lie. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the other thing is, it's really interesting, is it's explicit that if anybody else lies, they will be quite punished, right?
You're out. Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, though, is these aren't the sense in which, like, say, the myth of the metals is a lie is very, very difficult to come to because basically go ahead.
And that's where I'm caught. This is really kind of a question for you, right? It's like that when that comparison is made, it does make it seem like it is just a lie, not just like a myth with broad interpretive scope, right?
Yeah.
You kind of like want it to be that, because then it's like, okay, now there isn't like a glaring inconsistency or a glaring immorality. But then there's other comparisons that are made where it almost seems like, no, this is just a straight falsehood, but we're the only ones who can do it, right? And then it's like,
Well, and so like what is the lie about the metals, or the myth of the metals? Is that, you know, what is it like? We were all at one point, you know, sort of forged in the earth by the gods, and they put a certain type of metal in our soul. And if you're what was it? Bronze or iron, you're going to be a farmer or a merchant, right? If you've silver, you're going to be an auxiliary, and if you're gold, you're going to be a guardian, right? And so is that okay? Is that literally true? It is not. But is it true that there are some people who are naturally suited, and it would be best for them and the commons that they be merchants? Yes. Right. Are there some people that are naturally suited and be best for them and the commons that they be auxiliaries and so on, guardians? Yeah, that's all true. And so is the point of the saying of the myth, is it to get people to believe in, you know, that they in fact were at one point residing under the earth and given metal, or is it to get them to understand that there's such a thing as natural differences? Right. And okay, and if it's the latter, I think you can make a case. There's a sense in which it's not a lie.
It's a poetic truth or something.
It's a poetic truth, something like that. Yeah. Right.
Which would be better for Socrates' overall consistency, if that's what's taught, right? Because otherwise, I think it's just you're in a big mess, right?
Is it unifying them more with the truth? Yeah, it is. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If it's the interpretation you gave, then we can see how.
Yeah.
Because if we believe that there's a deep link between truth and unity, it would seem very odd to try and like keep the unity through
Yes.
deliberate
Yeah.
lies, right?
I think he actually says if the myth of the lie, creates justice, and what is justice? It's unity, as we're seeing here. Then it's fine, right?
Right.
I mean, this is not necessarily my view. I'm just saying that I think this is what Plato's up to, or Socrates is up to. Yeah,
this is your read on it. Yeah,
It's
very
my
good.
read on it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any other final points about book 3 before we tend to some comments?
No. And I see, book 3 is like setting up some very cool stuff in 4 and 5. So that's
yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right, just listeners, if you have anything for us, you pop it in now. We will go through.
I did see one where someone said, "Is this?" I think it was JC asked if this has anything to do with the one and the many.
Yeah, let's
yes.
bring that up one. Yeah.
Yes. Right. The book is Plato's take on the one and the many. Right. And I ask you as you read the book to constantly be looking for those plurality versus unity themes that come up, and the need to subsume plurality into unity. Right. Again and again throughout the book. It is a series of overlapping cycles of questions about plurality versus unity. Yeah. Right. So yes.
Good. And for those who are interested in the one and the many, I did an episode a week ago on Norris Clark's metaphysical account of that. So might be helpful to refresh on that.
And I saw JC did say that he or she has begun reading The Republic. And they appreciate the commentary. We appreciate you reading The Republic, and we appreciate that support. That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you, JC.
Yep.
Saul says, as a 29-year-old soldier, I appreciated the quote, "Find the guys who will only desire to kill the bad guys, not their neighbors." Not easy, since we're still human and we get bad apples too.
Yeah, I agree, Saul. First of all, Saul, thank you for your service. And secondly, I think if if the 20th century taught us anything, it's that unsupervised 19-year-olds with rifles does not have to end well. Right. So, so thank you for leading them well.
Indeed. Brendan says, this isn't a question, but you guys should obviously do merch on the new channel. Yeah.
Right.
Totally open to it.
Yeah, totally.
Get some philosophy for the people t-shirts going.
Exactly. Yeah. With the dead community.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Bob.
Rest in peace, Bob.
All right. Let's see here. Colin wants to know, are we saying that Socrates was a hylomorphic duelist? Oh, this is going to set Jim off.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, because I don't know what a hylomorphic duelist is.
Take Ed Phaser's position. Was he in the same page with Ed Phaser? How about that?
Yeah, I think okay.
Because I agree with you. Yeah. Putting dualism next to hylomorphism just is. Yeah, it just makes you want to put a face on, but
it's not you, Colin. It's not you, Colin.
Yeah, people do it, you know. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, maybe we're just talking about the Socrates and the Plato of the Republic, but I mean, also, like, you have to remember, like, by the time you get to the Phaedrus, like, you're getting a lot of stuff there that's sounding a lot like Aristotle's physics at that point. Like, you've got matter as sort of like an irreducible constituent of the universe, right? And you've got form being imposed on that and all that sort of thing. You get this in the Timaeus too. So I think there's a sense in which you could say, yeah, Plato is a hylomorphist too, right? I just don't think he's up to that kind of thing in the Republic. The point of the Republic is not to solve a problem in the philosophy of nature, right? It is a problem to tell us, like, what the good life is, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's an ethics book.
Yeah. It's an ethics book. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, you can't do ethics without having a metaphysics, right? And so it does presuppose metaphysics, right? But I don't think he's trying to make a finer point about that. Yeah.
Next one. Plato was hitting on the mean. Be specialized, but not excessively focused only on your specialty.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. If everyone, well, you have to be careful. At the political level, and this is one of the reasons why I think the Republic as a political treatise is so problematic, right? There is no mean for the parts of the polity. The mean is found by the whole, right? So the merchants should exclusively, 100% entirely concern themselves with their mercantile craft, period. The auxiliaries should exclusively, right, concern themselves with the preparation and execution of warfare, right, and police state stuff. The guardians should completely concern themselves with the craft of wisdom and leadership and all this. Okay, so and this is what I think, and I'm going to go off on this when we talk about in books 5 and 6. So one of the great ironies between the soul and the polity now is what he counsels for the individual parts of the soul is utterly immoderate. It is utterly and completely immoderate, right? It is extreme. It's a complete extreme, right? Stay in your lane, period, and excel at that. You can't even read the tragedies because they would teach you more than one craft of living, right? And then moderation emerges from the whole composed by parts, each of which are immoderate to themselves, right? So you get moderation from the immoderation at the lower level. Okay. Now go to the individual. He is telling you, I agree with you here, Saul, that you as an individual should be moderate, right? You should have balance, right? Okay. But what is balance? It's each part of you being completely immoderate, being extremely concerned with only its role in constituting you as a happy human being, right?
As a flourishing specimen, right? Good. All right, let's do one more here. Brendan says, how would Plato suggest that the intemperate become the kinds of people who are temperate?
Yeah, essentially, he doesn't give us a program on that, right? And I think probably the program on that would look not at all unlike the program that Aristotle lays out for that in the Nicomachean Ethics, right? Is they have to be habituated, right? They have to build new habits. They have to just be set about doing the things they don't like until they like them, right?
Long-term fat camp.
Long-term fat camp. Yeah, exactly. And moreover, though, I mean, Aristotle will say it can be too late too.
Yeah,
right?
Aristotle's very pessimistic, right?
Yeah.
If you're like kind of this far down the road and you're still doing those things, that could be it for you, right?
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, he definitely would not sell you personal training hours that he knows would do you no good.
Yeah, he's going to turn down a lot of clients.
He's going to turn a lot of clients. Right? Sorry, it's probably a little close to home.
Right. We're not saying that's right. This is just
we're not saying that's right.
Yeah,
please, jdmadden.com/fitness.
Yeah, no, you want like if this is like help me, well, jdmadden.com/fitness, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can help you. Trust me.
Hey, I am Jim. I'm having a blast with this series.
I am too.
This is a great idea. All right, assignment, gentle listeners, get book 4 read or listen to until the next one. Let us know any questions you have. You can please comment for the algorithm, do all that stuff. It helps. Please head over to the new channel of Philosophy for the People. Subscribe there. Jim, anything else you want to announce or mention before we go?
I dropped a new blog post recently. This is on the techno apocalypse at the orthodontist office, so please check it out. Please. It's actually it's had some good bounce, I found. Right, so
I'm gonna link it right now. So
this is going to be part of a series of blog posts I'm going to be doing on the techno apocalypse, right? And so there will be talk of aliens and lost civilizations too. Okay, so
Boom.
Get ready. Boom.
It's right in the
and
chat
there's an episode of the Cosmogram dialogue I did with IJ and Amos. IJ, a recent guest on this show.
Good dude.
Very, very good episode. I'm very, very happy. Very
to that.
I'm happy with this conversation. So please check out Cosmogram dialogues. And also, if I can get the darn thing to upload, because it's a behemoth, but I gave an hour and 15-minute lecture yesterday on book Zeta of Aristotle's Metaphysics, right? And so if you're looking to like really totally waste an hour and 15 minutes this weekend, right, on an academic lecture on book Zeta of Aristotle's Metaphysics, please. Yeah, I think it'll be coming up on my YouTube channel. I'll link it there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
And they should check out our chat with Gavin too. That just came. Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
That was an epic too. That was an epic. Yeah, exactly.
That was an epic. A lot of good just clash and progress in that conversation. So that's on the channel. Just check it out. And
whenever you put the three of us together, I think you get a really good model of what discourse looks like. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be the last person to disagree with that. So
that's right.
Until next time, my friends. Adios.